I would not have learned what I've learned today without that documentation, without those records, without Anna Marie. She worked at the church at that time, and she spent hours searching for information that I would ask, and then she would provide it, like no questions asked, and she would just help navigate the different spellings and names and stuff, and it was like a puzzle. She was naming events that nobody would have known. Nobody does know. Even if you're a researcher, a genealogy researcher, you won't find it unless you know what you're looking for. I end up getting birth and baptisms because my grandparents had 9 children, but only 3 lived lives. 6 of them, we never had that closure. And I didn't understand why. And of course, with residential school, unmarked graves and TB in the area, I was able to get those birth and baptisms from the church records. And then today, I have a friend who's a genealogy researcher. He actually found one of my mom's sisters. And on her birth and baptism, it's Okagi, but the Indian agent was changing the name to Campre, and I guess you can't really trace your roots if you don't have your correct identity. He found her name as Rosie Campre, and that's how she died, as Rosie Campre. So she wasn't Okagi, they changed her name too. So there was a lot of name changes. There was millions of us before. Where'd they all go? You can search for unmarked graves, but you can't put an identity to it. It's very important that the church releases those records or copies of those records into an area that we can access it. Because now they charge you $30 for one search and you're not guaranteed to get anything out of it. That's expensive, especially when you have limited means. Lately, churches have been burning. Those records are in there. It should be duplicated. Not even the Alberta Registry would have that information. So that's why it's very important. I wanted to regain what was lost. So I moved to Fort McKay and I lived there for about 4 or 5 years. I got my NCSO. I worked on site, worked in tailings ponds, I worked in head safety, and I took the trapper certificate. Then I got my gun license. I wanted to get back to what was lost. I found a lot of healing and peace and a lot of explanation on where and how we grew up. My grandparents couldn't read or write or speak English. They were fluent in their languages. They written in their languages. When somebody tells them something, they would believe it. They wrote X's. The nuns would write their name. It wasn't their right name that they knew of because they couldn't read or write. We've lost that rich history just because somebody fears it or somebody doesn't understand it. The stuff I know is so valuable. And now it's just paper tracing it to put it in place. But industry has to understand that we've been there for thousands of years and we've always been one to share the land. Unfortunately, sometimes other people take it upon themselves, and that's why individuals within the nation suffer. So you'll have people falling through the cracks while others are gaining. Then you'll have this vicious cycle. I think we need to start moving in an area where there's opportunities for everybody within the nation. If they reached out, I've written letters to oil companies asking for research dollars. I've asked my own First Nations, and I'm still paying that money back out of my PCD money. When you have grandparents and the roots so rich in that area, that I'm having to take out of my limited income to pay for this research, to finance it. I've had Aboriginal lawyers, I have researchers. I'm begging these people to help me. Very awesome to come out and help me with this, but it takes money to do this. It takes time. I've taken this time for 30 years out of my own pocket. I get to the point I'm left to just give up, right? So I give up, but then I get back up again and I'm looking again and I'm panhandling and asking. And I've even started GoFundMes. And people don't understand like how important it is to get that knowledge now and to document and preserve it for the future generations. I'm passionate because I believe everybody matters. My grandparents' children matter too. What I do for fun, going out into the land, visiting my culture, I think that gives me a lot of peace, and to be able to pass that down now is something my mother couldn't do. Now I'm doing it. Know your rights, know your placement in society, and very important to understand not just your Indigenous history and knowledge and ways of practicing, but also learn the non-Indigenous ways of how we are being treated, like registration, understand the Indian Act, understand the Métis policies, just so that you're aware of what your rights are in this place and you could stand for yourself, for your family too. Brings me joy is that the kids around me are all doing successful. It used to be to see got their treaty card, but it doesn't matter anymore. I think too much time has gone by. What matters is to get reconciliation for what had happened in the past and make it better going forward. That would be a happy note for me, is to find those stories and bring it to light and to just move forward after that. You can't have closure unless you know what happened.